Hey my friend, and welcome to Quest Givers. Today we're going to talk about monsters as a problem to solve.
If you're looking for adventure, grab the modules each month to support the channel and play the campaign with your gaming group. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
Join us on questgivers.com where you can purchase modules to help support the making of these videos. They're free to you on YouTube, and we will eventually be holding a Kickstarter on September 1st for our current campaign. Scotty, monsters. Without monsters, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, monsters are so fun. Like, yeah, that's what kind of, makes these fantasy modules fun, is you can have these weird monsters. It's fun to have the story and interacting with all the parts and bits of the story, but monsters are just that fun, fantastical element that really gives the story that kind of oomph and like something that's not every day,
The problem that we tend to find when a lot of people are starting out, and some veteran DMs, is that people tend to play monsters as just merely mechanical bags of numbers. And the problem with that is, as we go through this video, we'll talk about like what this actually means to the players and what that means to the story and your games. So this video is about converting that mindset of playing a bag full of numbers into how to create monsters, or take existing monsters from the monster manual and actually turn them into problems for the player to solve. So they're actually becoming like puzzles in the game that basically the players have to then solve what's actually happening in order to continue on in the story. So why should we convert it from a bag of numbers into a problem?
When you think about it as not just statistics on a page, but a problem that the players have to solve, that just, you'll find that your encounters come alive, right? They just spring to life from just being numbers to something that the players are interacting with. It's like it's an interaction into the world. It's a conduit into the world, and it's doesn't just have to be combat. Some players are more combat oriented, of course, but some players look at it more as as a problem to get around, and like how can I circumvent this problem, or how can I nullify this problem without losing all my hit points, for example. So
you want to get the players thinking. This is the most important thing. You want the juice between the ears to be swirling around. And one of the principal things that you can do is by not saying what the monster is when they encounter it. So if you go a bunch of goblins attack, that's different from these diminutive green-skinned fanged creatures come crawling over the mound in front of you. That's a very different description to a bunch of goblins attack, because now they're solving the problem of what are these monsters. They may within a few moments they'll goblins. Let them think they're goblins, because then you can always change it to being vampire goblins in the middle of combat because they've come to the wrong conclusion. But if you say goblins are coming over the thing, you've already kind of established what it is and how to defeat it. Whereas if you don't tell them the name of the monster, they immediately don't know exactly what it is, so they don't have the solution front and center in their mind. They have to come to it. So how do you use it to change the dynamics of combat?
You can add things to monsters, and it can be fun, like you said with the vampire goblins, that they maybe discover that. So they're fighting these goblins. They expect them to go down easy, right? And maybe they're tougher than you expected, and one of your suddenly leaps on one of your friends and starts draining blood from them, and you're like, what the heck is going on? So yeah, and then maybe you do a perception check and you realize, well, these goblins seem really pale. And they're like,
that's not a normal shade of green there.
They're sucking my blood. So yeah, it's so that becomes a whole nother exciting problem that, wow, we weren't like you said, we weren't expecting this. So yeah, that can really change the dynamic of the combat and make it so much more fun than just beating up a kind of group of standard goblins. If you're starting out in D&D, that can be fun. But as you get to know the monsters and you fight these monsters over and over again, that gets old pretty quickly. So you want to you want to change it up. You want to add different situations with the monsters. You want to give them maybe different powers or different abilities, that kind of thing. So yeah, don't just leave it at the standard just goblin. That's going to get old very quickly.
That being said, once you've transformed the goblins quite a few times, you can go back to using normal goblins because they now are expecting them not to be normal. So you can use that in reverse as well. But again, another example is like, for instance, skeletons. I love using skeletons. Undead is like my jam in fantasy stuff. Scotty says I'm not allowed to use undead in the modules like every single time. So I love things like, you have a bunch of skeletons that are attacking, and in Under the Tavern, my other module, they were underwater. So you're swimming in the dungeon in the sunken sort of dungeon, and there's skeletons below you attacking because they're standing, they don't have buoyancy, so they're down at the bottom attacking you with their rusty scabbards, cutlasses, sorry. So, that changes the dynamic through the environment. So the monsters are normal monsters, but the environment adds that level of complexity to it. Another thing you could do, again, with skeletons, is if you were in a cave that's filled with giant spiders or whatever, these skeletons are covered in webs because of the spiders. They're people that were formerly, desiccated and eaten by the spiders, have now been raised by some necromantic spell and now wandering the caves. But they've got sticky webs on them, which means that they can stick to you. Now, a skeleton that sticks to you and just keeps stabbing, because, the skeleton, that's what they do. They just keep doing what they do. Again, this is now leading to a big problem that has to be solved. And so it transcends the bag of numbers of what the skeleton is, of what the goblin is. And that is what's going to endear people to your game. They're going to enjoy the world. They're going to become more engaged in the story. If these monsters have purpose, there's a reason for being there. That's not just completely random. These things help in terms of amping up the mundane. So they change it from being these mundane things in the monster manual and become something that's unique to your world, to your game, and the players always enjoy that. I've never come across a time when a player has not enjoyed that. Have you?
Nope, I have not. Yeah, they always enjoy when you change it up. Another example could be like a really fearsome monster that is severely weakened, right? A dragon, or say a beholder that's been attacked by another adventuring group and it's just severely wounded, right? Maybe it only has one eye left, okay? Maybe one eye stalk. The other eye stalks are, damaged or, whatever. The main eye's been plucked out or, hit with an arrow or something, and so it's out of commission. And maybe the thing is barely alive, and it has that levitation, so it's kind of bouncing around the dungeon, and maybe that becomes the new attack. Maybe it's not so deadly because it only has the one eye, but it's deadly because it could squash you. It could literally squash you, it's bouncing around because its levitation is failing. So that could be like a whole different encounter than what the players would expect, and they could probably defeat this at a much lower level. I'm sure they could at a much lower level than if you met a full ready for you beholder with all its eye stalks and that kind of thing.
And when you're playing with veteran players and you're playing a level 1 party and they see a beholder coming through the dungeon, they don't know that the beholder is blind and weakened. They just see a beholder. They know, having played lots of games, they know that this is a dangerous creature. So their reaction to it is exactly what you want. They're going to try and run away from this thing, and this thing's going to be bouncing after them through the dungeon, banging into walls.
That's such a great image.
Just banging into walls and up, randomly shooting and bolts of lightning and destroying the ceiling. You can then have fun with it. You can play with that. You can adapt the environment, change what's happening. The players then kind of why is the beholder doing this? They know about beholders, and beholders shouldn't act this way. They're thinking more about the situation and the monster, and that is the cream on top That's really, I mean, if you learn anything else from our videos, this is the key sort of ingredient that's going to help you improve your game immensely. I think this one video alone, can help most people quite a lot with their games.
That is a great point, because if a monster's not acting the way it should, the players are just going to automatically, what is going on here, right? You don't even have to spur that on and say, oh, there's something, what do you think is going on? They're going to be like, whoa, what's wrong with this, or why is it doing this? They're going to think that automatically, and that's cool. And that kind of leads into something else I'm thinking, emotional investment in monsters, right? Like, get them to somehow invest, right? So for example, maybe they've killed a bunch of goblins and the last goblin begs for its life. Are you going to murder it in cold blood? Or are you going to let it go? That really, it's surprising how the look on the players' faces when you do that, because they don't expect monsters to surrender like that and throw themselves at your mercy. When you do that and they're just basically going to murder this thing, it's a whole different thing than when you're fighting a bunch of goblins that are trying to kill you. And when one's totally at your mercy and begging for its life, maybe it says, oh, I have 10 children and I have this, please, my wife is waiting for me, don't kill me, please, and that is really emotional. The players are like, whoa, wait a minute, and that is really emotionally effective in a game. So don't count that out. Don't count out the emotional connection that you can build with monsters easily. Like, that's just someone that's surrendering, but you can do this with all kinds of different encounters and that kind of thing. And it makes the players think about the monsters as living, breathing creatures, with their own lives and everything, as opposed to just a bunch of bag of hit points to kill, right?
Or even if they're a bunch of sickos and they're murder hobos and the goblin is pleading for its life and talking about its wife and kids, and you've got your barbarian there with a string of goblin ears around his neck, and he says to him, where are your wife and kids? Yeah, they're still invested. They want to know, they want to murder more of these things. So it works in that context as well. So don't be afraid to do that, because if you're, your group of murder hobos, it just plays into their whole, that's what they enjoy doing. So give them that. That's what makes their game fun. We're not the ones to say don't.
Right. I mean, if that's what they enjoy, killing everything, yeah, that still leads into a fun, okay, where are they? Where is this family of yours? So, yeah, if that's the way you want to play, that's fine. But yeah, it leads into just making the game more interesting, right?
Thank you very much for once again joining us on Quest Givers. Don't forget our Kickstarter on September 1st. You can purchase modules on our website, questgivers.com, and we'll see you in the next video.